this is not the best of times to speak on economic matters, because there is a principle in statistics that you never measure anything. There's a base year. You have to take a base year in statistics. You never measure anything when there is something abnormal happening, like a flood or a war or something like that. You have to allow things to calm down before you start measuring anything in terms of statistics. This is worse than that. The world is sitting on the edge of an eruption, the Trump eruption, a financial eruption, almost like a volcano erupting. And there is no doubt that it is nothing less than an eruption on tariffs and currency and the world economic order and its own political effects, change of power equations and all the rest. I cannot think of a greater or more significant event than this in the last 100 years. Probably a comparable event would be the 1929 Great Depression. This is my reading. And we have this Trump disruptions playing out. And when this is playing out, to talk on economic matters becomes a little bit, to say the least, a little bit dicey. However, since there is an event like the budget of 2025, with all the hype about these income tax slabs and things like that, I think I should comment on certain matters that are more significant than the pure income and expenditure statement of the government, which is what a budget is all about. The problems of the Indian economy are not the problems that could be solved just like that if you tinker with the income tax slabs. It is just a little bit disproportionate and even perhaps a little bit silly to think that tinkering with the income tax slabs of those who earn income of 20 lakhs and above is going to make some big changes in the Indian economy and release something or the other. I don't want to go into all the language, the excessive language that has been used, but pure common sense would tell you that this is not it. That a minuscule percentage of the population pay income tax, roughly about 1.5 to 2% of the population, 2% of the population, and maybe they are about out there about 1 crore of people who will be having that kind of slab. That's a very rough calculation. I may be wrong here or there. But even those people with all the exemptions and things like that which are built into the Income Tax Act, the life insurance corporation subscriptions and all the rest, a good part of it, shall we say, 1% or 2% will go without any tax even otherwise. So we are speaking about a very small and insignificant thing, and that's definitely not going to make any big change in the Indian economy. That is very clear, and therefore let me be done with it. Therefore, all the distraction, all the hype that was there when the budget came out a few days ago, all that is a little bit unrealistic and to some extent, violence to the truth, and which is very sad, because we have to see that we are not distracted from some of the other issues that stare us in the face. Now, what are those issues, and how do we look at it? Remember that things are only going to be more and more difficult when we think of this financial eruption or volcanic eruption that is on the way. The other important issues seem to be that they are really not issues at all connected with anything that has to do with an annual budget. What do I mean? I mean simply that there are long-term issues, which, if you want to use a bigger word, is systemic issues. Issues that are underlying the economy, and issues that have been part of this whole thing of the economy for a number of years, and which are likely to remain there again for a number of years. I speak of, say, the weakness in manufacturing, the low employment as a result of that, things like that. And even in manufacturing, you have some issues that are also exacerbated by some of the things that are happening, some of the things that have been happening in the past few years. Now, let me quickly be done with it, because my comments relate to another area. Still, when we talk about the important areas of the economy, we have to talk about the fact that the policy, which may have been with good intentions, was to push the big companies in that sector. I mean, the Adani, Ambani, Tata, and all those big companies, to see whether they can make a difference. Well, the result of that is that there is a chilling effect of that on the other prospective investors. I am not talking about the internal investors. After all, when we talk of manufacturing, and manufacturing also for export, we are talking about the possibilities that lie in foreign investment into these sectors. That is, there the possibilities are infinite, foreign investment. And when you have these, shall we say, these big companies slightly perceived as favorites, who have hogged the space in certain sectors, there will be a chilling effect on the investors, thinking that anything that has to do with these sectors, we better not touch them, or better not go near them, because we might get hurt. Therefore, we have only the other sectors. And that is one thing. And the second thing is that of late, I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, there has been what is called a weaponization of the inspection and intrusive agencies of the government of India. I refer to the enforcement directorate and all that kind of, a lot of other people who all come into play when you want to you make some person or corporation uncomfortable. So this kind of thing, all these people coming in and intrusively going about their business in this sector does not augur well at all for any investment, potential investors. I'm talking only about one of the problems, because India's economy is like an elephant. And like the poem in the blind men of Hindustan, we are looking at the various parts, but I took one of these important parts and say, this is symptomatic of the slow growth economy and the why of it. Even in this manufacturing sector, there is just a bit of a hint that protectionism in one form or the other is coming back. In 1991, everything was opened up by Dr. Manmohan Singh. After that, the perception is, and even in the ground level, the experience is that protectionism in one form or the other, which in other words, in simple words, means government interference, the government having to give you the go-ahead for various things, that kind of thing has come back. I was just reading the other day about some quality control over the suppliers of parts and materials from other countries. If a government has to certify the quality of those suppliers, then obviously there is this protectionism or government interference coming back by some other name. These are only indicative. I am not one of those who can give you a battery of examples to show that protectionism is back. But then there is just a hint of that, and that is probably the background in which the economic survey, which always precedes the presentation of the budget. What is the economic survey? It is the work of the chief technocrat in the ministry, the chief economic advisor's report, shorn of all politics, just looking at the figures. And in that report, this report, which preceded this budget, the chief economic advisor to the government has said that the urgent need is for government to get out of the way. Please get out of the way. That is the urgent message. And if the economic advisor, the chief economic advisor says things like that, it means that government is in the way and is a slightly obstructive force in that area. We are just talking about the manufacturing sector, which has never done well and whose contribution to exports is not what it should be. It's a very pale and anemic contribution. That something can be done where there is a will is illustrated by the Tamil Nadu example. I was reading the other day that Tamil Nadu has very successfully invited various foreign investors plus very reputable investors here in India to the leather manufacturing. I mean leather goods, shoes and bags and things like that, leather. They have successfully got them all and they are working. Not just anyone, investors from Italy with their brands Gucci and other things, and investors from Germany, they are working. You see, India is a big country and the states have a big role to play, and where they want to make it happen, it will happen. The lesson of that is that the central government should take these states along if they want to really want to see that these kinds of targets that they have are achieved. Well, this is just saying that, I mean, to illustrate that all this hype of the income tax slabs and tinkering with that isn't at all relevant. And there are other very big issues involved in the economy. And if one were to speak out the truth, they would say something about that, so that we would know that this is what they're tackling. I would leave that part there and go to another point which I want to make, and that is what I call the mystery, shall we say, the thing that has got to be explained, why and how the Reserve Bank of India kept the US dollar rupee exchange rate rigid for the last 3 years, 2021 to 2024. Now, this is a little bit normally an area of technicality, but I want to simplify it as best as I can. Now, there is no doubt at all about the fact that when we deal with the exchange rate, we are talking about the exchange rate between the US dollar, which is always called the almighty dollar, to a national currency. This is the name of the game. Now, about the US being the almighty dollar, it is historical. The US is the currency of all trade transactions. It is the currency which is the kind of reserve for all the countries and all the economies of the world. China has a huge trillions of dollars in US securities. So it is the safe haven currency. So no comparison with other currencies of the world. Why it is so is another subject. It is another subject after Bretton Woods conference and all that. That is something which we now take for granted. So all along, the path of prudence was followed by the Reserve Bank of India. They allowed what could be called a managed float. What is a managed float? To see that the US dollar, which always historically strengthens itself, with reference to our currency, we slightly devalue. I mean, it gets devalued by its own nature to a very small extent. It could be, say, 25 paise or 30, like that kind of thing. That was how it was managed all along. Now, in these 2-3 years which I am talking about, for some reason, the US dollar rupee was kept very rigid, with the result that I do not know, of course, our inputs were I mean, perhaps cheap, and we could get some cheaper loans, though it would hurt our exporters quite a bit, because a kind of arrangement like that, which keeps the dollar a little bit on the rigid side and which does not allow the rupee to devalue itself to a small extent, will hurt the exporters. So this continues. Now, this volcano is on near eruption. Whenever there is a volcanic eruption in trade or commerce or currency or tariffs, all the world's currencies and investors and everything flee to the safe haven of US reserves, US currencies, US securities. So with that, the US dollar, which has always been strengthening historically, is going to make a daily march upwards. And we are going to get hurt, because all the loans that we have taken have to be serviced, and now it will cost us more rupees to get dollars to service those loans. Then there will be other things that are happening with our exports not enough shape to really go big. Our imports, on which we depend on a lot, from oil to edible oil, from petroleum products to edible oil, a whole range of inputs will cost us more. So there will be almost a daily pain imposed on the economy from now on. It's already there. You will see that the US dollar is now about 87 point something. And every single day this US dollar is going to strengthen, go up. That is what it is going to be. So this is going to happen, and this is going to inflict some pain, significant pain. So what is it that I am saying? I come to from where I began, that this is a time of turmoil. We can see all the signs of an eruption of this volcano, the Trump volcano eruption. We can see that. And we are in some difficult times. At least this is not a time for unnecessary euphoria. This is a time probably of looking at our trade and our currency and our economic management with prudence, with sobriety, and not get caught up in any of these slogans. The nationalistic thing and all that is good for us in a different context, but not in trade or economic matters where the laws of arithmetic will always prevail, and we cannot be subject to sentiment. So what I call for is to realistically assess what is happening, and the absolutely truthful fact that with a GDP of about $2,200 per capita, US dollars per capita for India, we cannot ever expect to be a developed country by 2027. From the pure arithmetic point of view and not from the aspirational point of view. As nationalists, we would like all these things to happen, but this is not going to happen because it is pure arithmetic to calculate that if we are at a 5%, 5.4%, actually the figures will be less because there is a little bit of doctoring going on the GDP and other figures. But even accepting 5% or 5.4%, to think that we who are at $2,250 US dollars per capita will reach a level, developed country means 65,000 US dollars per capita. That is what it is. And some kind of middle income country, 25,000 US dollars per capita. To reach even that middle level will be very difficult. So, to have that sobriety, to understand the realistic picture, to look at figures, this is what I call for and what is probably required in this time, one of unnecessary euphoria that things are now going to change with the slabs being tinkered with, and two, the volcanic eruption that we face with the Trump tariffs. Now, this disproportion is very startling, and something which we have to take note of. Let us get closer to facts and realism. That's what I think we should do.